Hello crafty friends, this is the Papered Chef here. In today's Brother Scan and Cut Tips and Tricks tutorial, you are going to learn how to cut out patterned paper using your Brother Scan and Cut SDX 125. You can follow along with whichever model you have. I'm going to be showing you how to cut out these two pieces here because these two represent what you can do with most patterned paper that you would have in your stash. This piece we're going to be using black and white recognition mode. As you can see, there's really well-defined, there's well-defined lines, I should say, and these whales are on a nice solid background. So this warrants black and white recognition mode, even though the paper is in color. However, when I tried black and white recognition mode on this page of turtles, it just didn't work. I'm going to be showing you tips and tricks such as using color recognition mode for the turtles and how to use the pencil to connect some of the spaces to help the scan and cut. I'm also going to be explaining how I tried a couple other pieces of paper and how that worked out for me. And there is something called a whale builder punch. And at times, there are other papers, and at times I think it's just easier to use the punch. But the whale builder punch is a fixed size. Well, number one, you might not have the punch. You might not have the strength to use punches. Or you may, you may not have the strength. B, you might not own the punch. But C, this is a fixed size. So it would only cut out the big whales anyway. So I would never use this punch on this piece of paper. It would just be too much work. There are other pieces of paper, however, I tried, and I want to explain the results of that. So let's just jump right into it though. And then of course at the end of my tutorials, if you're new to my channel, what I do at the end of my tutorials is I show you projects I created using the skills that you just learned. I'm going to show you cards, and I even have a 3D project that I created using the Whale of a Time suite by Stampin'. So first thing I did is I attached this piece of paper to the mat. I put it in the top right. I get asked this all the time. Why do you use the top right? My top left side tends to get caught up a little bit, and it's just not as sticky because I just used to use that side a lot. And this side I have better results with. That's the only reason. I'm also putting it in the top 6 inches because with the ScanNCut SDX, you can determine if you're going to scan in the whole 12 by 12 inches or just the top 6. So that's why I'm putting it in the top right corner. One more thing I want to say, because I've played with this paper a lot, is if I had a whale up here at all that I didn't want to get cut off, if this full whale was close to the top of the edge, I wouldn't put this paper up here to the edge of the mat, because the edge of the mat never scans in and never cuts. So it's okay though, because I don't need these whales. I mean, that one's cute to have a tail, but I need the whales that are inside, and none of them are too close to the edge, and that's why I can put it where it is. In that case, that's what I did. All right, so now when you turn on your machine, my mat's already loaded, but you would have loaded the mat using this button here, and I need to turn off my backlight, but just let me show you that. Okay, and now I'm going to turn off my light so you can see the screen really well. All right. When you turn on your machine, you see pattern and scan. We are scanning in the patterned paper. This could be any patterned paper you have in your craft room. Okay, it could even be something you drew. It could be something you stamped. In other words, we're scanning in something that we want to cut out. Okay, so you have pattern and you have scan. We're going to be using scan. We're directly cutting these out. We're not saving these whales, right? We're not saving them. We're just cutting them out. So we're going to select direct cut. And now it's asking, where do you want to store the information? On the machine. Now, I used color earlier. I'm going to go back. You need to use black and white recognition for these whales because there's very well-defined lines. Let me get the extra piece. There's really well-defined lines. You can tell there's a contrast between the whale and the background. So use black and white recognition mode. In fact, always start there, unless in my case, I've already experimented and told you not to start there. I always start with black and white recognition mode just to see how it works. It takes less time. And then here's the scanning area. You don't have this option on other models, well, in some other models, but I'm going to select the 12 by 6 area. So I just want the top, okay? And I want black and white recognition mode in the top 6 inches. And we're going to say start. And it's going to scan in this whales. So there are about 13 full whales. I don't even mind if the small parts of the whales get scanned in either. But because you can always use the little tails for some embellishments. That would be cute, right? The little whale tails. But there are 13 full whales in the inside of the paper. So let's click OK. And it does a really good job with black and white recognition mode. But you might be wondering what all this mess is on the mat. My mat's very scratched. I use it a lot. I have many mats. So I want to get rid of all these things. Right now, as it is, because the ScanNCut recognized these things, it's going to try to cut out all those lines. I call them my rogue lines. So I can get rid of them in a few ways. First, I'm just going to select the area I want. So that's one way to get rid of all this extra mess over there, is just by selecting the area that you want. And another way is to ignore object size. But we don't want to ignore these tiny whales, right? So if I ignore objects that are too big, these whales will start disappearing. So right now I'm ignoring object size. And you can go up to, I would say only go up to about 1/2 inch to get rid of the stray marks. But don't go all the way up don't go all the way up too high, because you don't want to ignore the very thing you're trying to cut out. So for this one, just 1/2 inch we're going to ignore. And then the third way is to edit out the unwanted bits if you still have ones that you don't want. So we've ignored object size, we've made a selection, we said okay, and then we can edit out the unwanted bits. But first, before we do that, let's put an outline distance around our whales. Okay, so we want a little white outline. Well, I do personally, and it's not really going to be white, it's more like, this is the pool party color. I want a little bit of that ocean color behind each whale. So I want a little bit of an outline distance. So I'm going to click on 0.04. So you always do the outline distance before you edit out any unwanted bits, because the outline distance will be forgiving and get rid of some extra stuff for you. So now we can go click on edit, and now we can zoom in there and see how we did. Okay, I like this whale. That's a full whale. That's a half whale. I don't need this half whale. I don't need them, and I don't want to waste the time cutting them. Okay, but because it doesn't even have a tail. This is just the head of a whale. Okay, and you always have to weigh the factors. Like if it's a nice tail and it's not going to take much extra time, go ahead and cut it out. I'm just looking around at what we have here. These are full whales. See, this is a little piece of a whale. That's messed up. I don't know how that happened. That didn't happen the first time I tried it, but that's a full whale. And that one is a full whale with a little bit of extra weird stuff going on. So basically, when I'm all done, I'll probably get about 10 good ones. And was it worth it? Yes, because if I would have cut these out or punched them out, it would have taken me forever. I'm not sure how come I can't get to that little piece up there. I'm trying to get to that. There it is. I'm trying to get rid of that little bit. All right, so, and I'm doing this for a couple reasons. I'm doing it to save time, so I don't have to stop the camera for this particular part, because this particular part is going to be fast, and I want you to see how fast it is to cut out. Because if you're just kind of wondering about the ScanNCut and you're comparing, so let's just say, okay, we got rid of the unwanted bits. I trashed them. Lots of good whales still. I'm going to click cut. Okay, so you click OK, you click cut, and I'm going to click start. Now, I can talk about other things while it's doing this, but I want you to see this, because you might be wondering, should I get the ScanNCut? Because I could have just cut these out faster between all the editing. No, you can't. Well, you could maybe if you're really fast with scissors. You can't cut them out as accurately. And even the punch, in my opinion, isn't quite as accurate as the ScanNCut, in that you don't have to, this one just puts an even space around the outside of your whales, and it's really harder for you to do that with the punch without being at the right angle. So now I'm going to discuss this other papers. And by the way, this Whale of a Time Designer Series paper, which I have linked, is just amazing. And it comes in a pack of 48 sheets. So let's talk about this page here. This page here was not worth my time, and I will be honest. Not just because I have the whale punch, but this was not worth my time, and I'm going to show you why. But first of all, let me show you the whale punch while it's cutting with the ScanNCut. The whale punch was hard, and I didn't want to have to do this. But when I use the whale punch, I have to get in there, and I had to do this kind of thing, right? I had to make this little room around. By the way, that's done cutting, but I still want to finish this point I was making. I have to make room around my paper when I'm going to use a punch. Okay, because the punch, look at this. I'm going to open up the punch. Now, and you're probably saying you might not even have the punch, but that's another whole point too. But look, I have to sit and do all this work to line it up and get it even, which is still cool. I love it. okay, but it's not still. I want to show you what happened when I tried to use the ScanNCut because I didn't want to have to do all this extra work to the paper. But it's still really nice. Look at that. Nice white space around it. Now, let me put that on a background. Okay, because you might be wondering, should I get the punch or should I get the thing? Okay, pretty good. And the little fin was cut off. That was, I mean, not fluke. It's a fluke because that was already like that with the paper. And just one more, just so you see. To get in there, though, I had to do this. So I wasted a lot of paper. It took me a lot of time. But I ended up punching out this particular sheet of paper. And I will show you why, because when I scanned it and tried to cut it, there's too much stuff connected to the whales around the sides. So I sometimes had to use a little sticky note to push to get my whale. Okay, that's pretty good. Good enough, right? Good enough. It looks good. See, so my whale punch did a better job than my ScanNCut for this particular sheet. For this particular sheet. And here's why. And then I'll pull out this one and I'll show you. Okay. So because you have lots of papers. There's 48 sheets of paper. They're double-sided. I'm not going to show you all the paper right now. Well, number one, I don't even have all the paper right now. I used most of it. But anyway, number two is because I'm just trying to make this point. So for this piece of paper, the punch works better. But if you don't have a punch and you're going to cut it out, it's going to end up like this. Okay? It's going to end up like this, which is not a problem. But look at all the little extra little humps. And that's what ended up happening to my turtles too. You can cut those off, but to me, see these little nibs? And the reason is because lots of stuff is touching. Lots of this water is touching the whales. And even with the pencil, even when I tried to enclose the whales in with the pencil, they still came up with these little humps all over the place. And you can cut off these little humps, but to me, okay, and they're easy to cut off, and we're going to do that for our turtles. In fact, it's worth it to do for your turtles because they're very intricate. But it's not worth it to do for these whales. I found that I always time how long things take me, and I thought, by the way, I just had tape on there because I was holding the paper down. And I think that in this particular sheet, it was better to use the punch. But in this particular sheet, now look at the difference. Okay, so I have lots of sheets of paper here of that kind. Okay, so this one definitely is ScanNCut. Not only because the punch will only take the fixed size whales, because the punch is a fixed size, right? That's the disadvantage of punches and dies, that they're a fixed size. Maybe you don't have the punch, okay? And number two, it just works really well. And there's 3 different size whales. So that's the real reason you definitely want to use the ScanNCut for this piece of paper. And you have 4 sheets of this kind of paper. This is this kind of paper. You have 4 sheets of each because there's 48 sheets in a pack. All right, now check out how awesome this is. And there's one that didn't come out. So what do? You can either put it back through the ScanNCut, this whale, or in my case, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take it and punch it out. That's because I have a punch. I always say use the right tool for the job. But look at these. Aren't they awesome? So we're going to peel I'll show you how to peel them off. But instead of sending this back through, enclosing it with a pencil, doing all kinds of work or fighting with it, I'm instead going to just use my punch and finish off that one. And I use, see, he's awesome. And then I sacrifice, I use the scraps for other things or just sacrifice the paper. Here, I could put a nice sentiment right on this one because it's nice and light. All right, so now let's show you this part. And of course, let me turn on my light because you could see I was a little crooked there with my punch. That's the thing is, in this case, because I don't have the greatest steady hand, the ScanNCut did a better job than my punch. That's because I've been aligning it too. I've been aligning my ScanNCut. Now this one got a little bit messed up, but that's okay. Whenever it gets messed up, and you're going to see that my turtles get way more messed up than these whales, you just get in there and you fix them in a jiffy. How awesome. These are just, I had loads and loads of embellishments to make things with. I'm so happy. All right, I'm not pulling my mat off because I'm having mat loading issues, but I'm just leaving my mat onto I'm leaving everything on there. So let's put these on a different color background so you can see how great these are. We'll put them on this little blue background. There's lots of coordinating colors in this suite. But this nice blue I'm putting these on is called Pacific Point. That's a really nice color, and that's what when I show you my projects later, that's what I stamped with, was Pacific Point. I stamped all my whales. Okay, look at all these whales. Well, that's the one I punched. We won't include him unless you want to include him for comparison. So here's our success. Okay, I'm very happy with this, and this is what happened earlier. So, a couple things I can mention here. If you precisely want to put more paper in the same spot, This is just another tip and trick because I'm all about tips and tricks. I personally didn't do this because I was doing other things and I didn't cut out a whole bunch of these at once. But if I were to put another piece of paper right in the top right corner again, and I just hit cut again, then it would cut out the whales in those exacts, because as long as I had the paper facing the same way, I could just keep cutting out sheet after sheet of whales. But I chose not to do that. I choose to scan them in each time just for better accuracy. Okay, so we're going to lift that up. And now, oh yeah, so now we're going to do, okay, moving right along, we're going to do the turtles. I hope you understood that part. Now for the turtles, I'm putting them again in the top right. But only reason I'm putting them in the top right is because I don't care if these get cut off. And it's going to even give me an error message about being out of the cutting area. But that's okay. I don't want those turtles anyway. In fact, we're not going to cut out too many turtles now. We're going to cut out enough to give you the point and to give you some examples. Now, you do have to use the pencil trick on the turtles and color recognition mode. So, I tried black and white recognition mode, and I also tried the CM350 because I have the CM350 as well. That machine didn't really do as good as far as like the detail. It still did a good job, but it just didn't do as good as the SDX, and usually it's the other way around. But this one machine has a more sensitive scanner. But you still have to do what's called the pencil trick. I have to show you my full turtles first. Let me show you my turtles. Okay, these turtles came out fantastic, but I did have to take off a couple little nibs at times, and I left a couple to show you what I mean. See, they're going to come out with a couple of these little extra. Let me make sure my camera's in focus here. I have to put on my reading glasses because I can't see what you see. There you go. If these little things get scanned in, it's okay. You can't do anything about them unless you really want to trace around these turtles. So don't worry about little things like that. I know it looks like the poor little turtle has a tumor, but we can cut those off. They're not worth using the pencil trick for. Sometimes mine got cut off like this though. So that is worth using the pencil trick for because look, my shell got cut off. So in other words, I didn't even need the pencil trick on all my turtles. I did it without the pencil trick. But when I did it without the pencil trick, I got the turtle, like the shell got cut off. So I would say fix this shell of the green one by doing this. Nice solid line just around the shell. And the flippers are okay. But you could trace that one. I'm probably not even going to use that one because he's a pain in the butt. But we're gonna use this. We'll try this one. This is another hard turtle because it has so much paint around the sides of it. See, these were on watercolors. I'm thinking the ScanNCut graphic artists, they were like, not the ScanNCut, the Stampin' Up graphic artists were conspiring against us. ScanNCut users. They're like, we're going to put these on a watercolor background and make it really hard. I'm just kidding. For us to scan them in. So I'm using a pencil trick and I'm enclosing the turtle's head. But even when I did that, it didn't quite work on all of them. And I only had to do it to this one up here. Okay, that's all I had to do it for. It was the top of that turtle. And I didn't even have to do the bottom of the turtle, but we can. None of the other turtles warranted it, but they did come out with little bumps on them. Even though it didn't need me to do the pencil trick, these little bumps still came out. If I would have done the pencil trick, I wouldn't have got those bumps. But the bumps are so easy to get off. To me, it was not worth the work of erasing them. Truth be told, you have to think of your time. So if your time, let me turn off this light. If your time is going to be spent doing the pencil and erasing the pencil, it would be better spent cutting off those little extra nibs or nubs or whatever you want to call them. So we're done with the black and white recognition mode. Now we're doing the turtles. So we're going to erase this. Okay, we're erasing this data from earlier. We're just going to go home, and it says delete all patterns. Yes. We're going to say scan. Okay. Let me just turn this little ScanNCut here. Direct cut. Follow along with whichever model of machine you have. Again, save it to the machine. This is just temporary storage. And you still want 12 by 6 scan area. This time color recognition mode. And we're going to say start. So it's going to scan them in and it's going to kind of look like a hot mess. But I was able to live with it and they came out pretty good anyway, and I was really surprised. All right, so we're going to click OK. And it's going to take longer to recognize in color mode than it does in black and white mode. Because it just does. It's recognizing many levels of color. Whereas the black and white is just recognizing the contrast between the two colors. This is recognizing several colors in the adjoining areas. So it's done being recognized. Okay, now you see how it looks kind of like a hot mess? Let me zoom in so I can show you what I mean. See, there's lots of extra little stray bits all over the place. Extra, like this would cut out. That little bit would cut out. Lots of extra stray points. Okay, it's not a big deal. We're gonna click OK, and we're going to ignore object size. And this time we have, I wrote down there were 13 full turtles, and I ignored up to 1 inch is what I wrote down. In fact, it's good to have a notebook of your settings so you can repeat your settings. These were notes I just took for myself. So I ignored about 1 inch, and that did not make my baby turtles, well, they're not really baby turtles, but it didn't make my little turtles disappear when I did that. But it did get rid of extra unwanted bits. So we say OK. Now we're going to put that outline distance around the turtles, 0.04, and you can see there's still a mess there. Okay, so still a mess. There's let me show you what I mean. But I'm not going to do anything except I will get rid of the extra half turtles. I'm going to get rid of the half turtles. But see how this one has little bumps on it? That's okay. These are so easy to cut off. So I would say that that's pretty good. I'm going to get rid of that because that's a half turtle. And let's see. We'll get rid of this turtle because it's a half turtle. And the other ones, I want you to see how they come out and how easy they are to fix. Like this one, we got twinsies going on here, but it's still going to be a fine turtle. So don't be scared when you see that it's like, you're like, oh, it looks like I could have done that with a crayon. Don't worry about it. Don't be scared. Let the ScanNCut do its thing. See, it's not so bad. When you look at just the outlines, it's like, oh, okay, I can handle that, right? It's not so bad. But when you look at it through the edit screen, you're like, whoa, what are all those lines? We say, okay, we say cut. And now it's going to take 3 minutes, so I will pause the camera and just not make you wait, but I'm going to hit start and let it do its thing. We'll see you in 3 minutes. It says finish cutting. We click OK. And now we're going to go ahead and unload the mat because I'm done. I have enough turtles for the cards I need. And now it didn't even say something. It's going to say, OK, when unloading, position a pattern on the mat may shift. Okay. But I do want to say that earlier, when I was trying to scan so close to the edge, it did say your pattern is outside the affected area. And I said okay to ignore that, but maybe because I wasn't very close to the edge this time. But look at that great job it did. Now I need to zoom the camera back out, or not zoom, but I need to change the camera angle and show you some more things before I show you my project. So we're going to show you how to take these off the mat and how to fix them and how easy they are to fix as compared to just trying to cut these ourselves. So if you, by the way, if you have a CM model of machine and not an STX machine, it will do an excellent job with these turtles. It did a pretty good job with it. Just in the color recognition mode, I just had a few more bumps I had to cut off because it wasn't as sensitive of a scanner. This scanner on the STX models is a 600 dots per inch scanner, whereas on the CM models, it's only a 300 dots per inch scanner. And that's all you need. Look at that. Great job. I don't really have anything left over here. I'm ready to get rid of that paper. What a great job. So if you are using a CM model, another thing to know is that you would need a blade depth of 3 when you're cutting designer series paper. Okay, so that's not a big deal. See, you're going to say, well, that didn't do a good job. Yes, it did a good job. If you consider having to cut that yourself, it did a good job. So all you have to do for this kind of turtle, and it's good to have good paper snips, is to just cut off that little, let's call them little harmless tumors. When I was in Hawaii years ago snorkeling, the turtles had tumors, but they weren't like deadly tumors. There was little fish swimming around eating off the things growing on their tumors. I mean, yes, they were probably a pain for them to have tumors, but they weren't like it wasn't like a deadly virus. Okay, and so I'm just let me tell you what I'm doing. I'm cutting these extra little bits off. So we can't get around this. The artist put the turtles onto splotches of watercolors. I mean, you can't get around the idea that there's little bumps all over because the turtles are not sitting on a solid background. Okay, so that's okay. So we just fix them. And I think you get the idea how easy they are to fix. Oops, I just cut the turtle's head off. So when you've restuck your mat, like I just recently have, the mats are very sticky. and you have to kind of bend them to get the, so I always like to do lots of tips and tricks. Like this one here is a little twinsy going on. Two turtles together, we can cut the bottom piece off that's sort of a scrap and get to the top piece. But you have to sort of bend them out to get these off. So it looks like a lot of work, but when you see the results, then you're like, oh, that's not a lot of work. And I do still have to erase the pencil mark on this particular one. So what I do with these kind of paper snips is I just keep cutting, and I turn the paper instead of turning the scissors. That's my little trick when I use such fine snips like this. Turn the paper, not the scissors. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'll do some erasing, and you get the idea. And here's some I did earlier. So it's kind of like a cooking show where I have some already done. I cut them the exact same way earlier, these little turtles. Okay, so you would erase the extra marks. Don't use the red eraser. Don't use that, because use the white eraser so it doesn't leave stains on your paper. All right, so now I will show you my projects. So I'm doing these card swaps, and I wanted to make sure that I put a cute little turtle on my whale cards, just because I just thought it'd be fun to add a cute little turtle. And I did the whale, most of the whales with the punch, except for the bigger whales and the smaller whales. But I mean, the ones I stamped, I did punch out with the whale builder punch. However, I used the ScanNCut for my turtles. And I'm doing this local swap, so I'll be publishing this video very soon after I give the girls the swaps. So I want to show these to you first, and then I'll show you my other projects. And I have a hard time making many of the same card without slight variations. That's just because each layout, you know, could be slightly different. So what I did here is I used the stitched rectangles dies. They're called stitch rectangle dies. Now, I get asked all the time, does the ScanNCut stitch? It does stitch, but not as well as a die can stitch. And I did teach this in my card making for the Brother ScanNCut course online. I taught how to do stitching. And it does stitch with the blade. It just doesn't stitch with, the metal dies do a little bit better job stitching. Okay, so for these cards, they're all going to be the same, so I'll go through them quickly after this. They're all going to have 2 whales of some kind, maybe 3 whales. They have 1 whales on a wobble spring. And I did punch out these whales that were stamped in Pacific Point ink. I punched those out with the whale builder punch. But then these whales, I didn't punch out. I used the ScanNCut for the whales in the background and the smaller whales. Okay, so one I stamped, and then I stamped, so Pacific Point is the color of the ink. Let's see if I have that ink here. I do, but I don't have the other colors. That's Pacific Point. It's one of the coordinating colors. And that is pretty peacock there. I think that matches the card back base. This is Granny Apple Green. I stamped that. And I stamped that from the Well Done stamp set, which should be here. The Well Done stamp set. Maybe not. I'm cracking myself up that I would lose things so quickly. Here it is, here it is. So I have the Well Done stamp set, and that's where I got the seahorse, and that's where I got the piece of coral, and I stamped the coral in Calypso Coral. So this is how I made these cards. And which card was I showing you? It doesn't really matter because they're all just slightly different. Then I put a turtle on each card. That's why I did all that work, is to put a turtle on each card. Okay, and then I took Designer Series paper, and I put Designer Series paper on the inside of the cards, and to write inside. And so some of the card bases are balmy blue, because that's one of the coordinating colors. Okay, let me just show you these now real quickly. And some of those are, card bases are Pool Party, and some of them are Pacific, Pretty Peacock. Okay, see how they have different insides. So each one is slightly different. And not everybody's going to be doing the swap in person. See, here's Mama Whale and Baby Whale. Not everybody's going to be at the swap in person because they don't live around here. And also because they don't want to go out. Some people still don't want to go out even though we're wearing masks. Oh, my wobble spring. This needs some surgery. But so for those that are there, I let them, you know, just pick the card, and then the rest will mail to those people that are not there. Okay, so this is it's actually a demonstrator group I'm swapping with. Other demonstrators. I think I forgot to show you the inside of that one. There's several different insides. See, this one has like a nice ray of light. This is all that same Whale of a Time Designer Series paper. Okay. Pretty peacock background. So this is why I did all that work. See, this one has 3 whales. I had lots of whales to work with. So I popped up the turtles and the whales on dimensionals, but then I did the the dimensionals held better. They're by Stampin' Up, the foam dimensionals. But then I did the wobble spring for one of the whales to add it to be the 3D effect. And there's also ribbon that goes in the suite and sequins, but I didn't do the sequins. There's an embossing folder. There's so many things that you can do with this suite. But when I was trying to give, we give each other ideas of things that if anybody wants to do a workshop, they can get an idea for a workshop. Okay. All right, so now I have a couple other kinds of projects. I think this is all these, except my wobble springs are going crazy. And then I put them in each, when you swap cards, you put them in bags, and then you label your name on the back, but you don't put any markings on the card itself. Like we don't stamp our names on the cards. All right, so this was a happy accident. So I call it, this was my happy accident. I was making cards. This is a Granny Apple Green card base, and I put this on upside down, this little piece of designer series paper. And this paper reminded me of the turtle Crush from the movie Finding Nemo. So it reminds me of the East Australian current when Crush and Dory go riding through the current and they're all spinning around. So because the paper was already on there, and I tried to use the new Stampin' seal, which I've already run out of. I have to change that over. But the Seal Plus, and it wouldn't come off. My card base wouldn't come off. So, or this layer. So I just went with it upside down and said, just roll with it. This is from the digital stamp set. Oh, I do have a piece of that embossing folder. Here's the embossing folder. Here's a piece of it. This is just something that goes with the suite. So that's what I put behind. This is called the Seabed 3D embossing folder. That's what I put behind the Just Roll With It. And the Just Roll With It is one of the sentiments from the digital stamp set Share Sunshine. All right, so moving along. I have a couple more cards. This one I had made last week. It was my husband and my anniversary. And it's not even, I didn't even use the ScanNCut, but I just wanted to show you. Well, I might have used it for the card mat, but I just wanted to show you that that's the Whale Builder punch, and I used some glitter for the water. Glimmer paper. Okay? So that's my anniversary card on a Calypso coral background. So I just brought that in to show you because I haven't shown it in any of my other videos. And then here's one I did with this is no punch. I didn't use the punch at all. I didn't use the Whale Builder punch at all. I used the ScanNCut to cut out 1, 2, 3, 4 whales and 2 turtles, all with the ScanNCut. So this card is pretty much what this lesson was all about. I mean, how much more fun is that when you can have all these like extra embellishments on your card? And let's see if I put it on. I didn't put it on a wobble. I just put 2 of them, glued them straight down, and then 1 I put up on dimensionals for extra dimension. And I love how the paper has different shades of whales colors. Okay, and 2 more projects and then I'm done. So the next project is a bookmark or a tag. And there's that ribbon I was telling you about. The ribbon is part of the suite. I forget what it's called, but it's just part of the Whale of a Time suite. And this Thanks a Ton is that stamp set here. Thanks a Ton. So is My Love for You is Bigger Than the Ocean. Okay, and then I've done other swaps with Whale Done. So I have used this. I've used this set a lot. So I put this on a wobble spring. There's some splashes of water that are part of the Whale Builder punch. See these little splashes of water. And I put a little baby whale. That's some designer series paper. I just used black cardstock for this. And this is our new punch. I'm trying to find that. Here's the punch. The new punch is called the Fancy Tag Topper Punch. And last, oops, why am I showing you the stamp set again? And last is my little turtle treat. So for this one, I used that same punch, Fancy Tag Topper Punch. And I used these are the in color enamel dots. And I put a little turtle in there, and I put a little piece of chocolate that was green because I'm going with the green turtle theme. It's Godiva Chocolate Mint, but I wanted it to match the turtle. So I put a little chocolate in there, and this is Just Jade. Just Jade is this color of the in colors, the color of the turtle, and the color of the ribbon. Just Jade with some black cardstock, Calypso Coral Designer Series paper. And you could put a sentiment on here too if you want, but I don't think it needed one. It's just a turtle treat. A turtle treat, that's all it is. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to cut out patterned paper using your ScanNCut. I hope these projects gave you ideas on what to do with all those embellishments that you cut out. I hope you understand when to use color recognition versus black and white mode. Okay, so this is black and white recognition mode. And I'm going to show you the other paper I gave up on. I did promise to show you that. So this is color, you'd use color recognition mode. Okay, and then I already told you about the one you wouldn't use either. You would use neither, you would just give up and use the punch for that one. And then this one, the paper with the little tiny things on it, not so bad. It works pretty good with the ScanNCut color recognition mode. But the problem is these little items, when I ignored object size, they just didn't really all cut out and only half my whales cut out. So this one is not so bad. And I did get a couple just to show you that these little tiny whales were not so bad. Here they are. They weren't so bad. They came out. The problem was that these other objects were so fine, and I wasn't really getting these to be recognized. Not recognized. When I said ignore object size, I ignored objects that were, and then these got ignored. But when they did come out, the whales came out fine for this kind of paper. But I just think I wasted too much paper. And for this one, I would not use again, so I wouldn't try it again. These two I will keep doing over and over again because I love how both of those came out. So just so you know. So anyway, that's all for now. This is the Papered Chef. Let me know if you have any questions.